This chapter coming up is the roof chapter. We're going to talk about roof coverings, gutters, and chimneys. The important thing to know about doing the inspection on a roof is most of the inspection happens in the attic. Gutters are extremely important, especially in terms of keeping the basement dry. If you have a wet basement, you have problems, and gutters are the first way to keep that basement dry. And then, of course, chimneys. It's a structure attached to the home that has myriad of different problems, but the most important thing about chimneys is the fact that it is a fire hazard. They have fires in there, carbon monoxide in there. It's extremely important. So watch this whole chapter, and I'll talk to you later.
Today's lesson will be how to perform the roof and ventilation inspection. This section consists of three components of a home: the roof system, the gutter system, and then the chimney. You're going to be walking around 3 separate times for each of those sections. So let's begin. You're going to break up the roof system into individual sections. So if we look at the cross gable, you will begin looking from the left to the right, from the ridge all the way down. And then you're going to proceed to look at the other main section of the roof from left to right, from the ridge all the way down. And you're going to be looking for lifting of shingles, moss, missing of shingles, indentations or depressions in the sheathing, and so forth. Then as we move on, we're going to be looking at the garage section. And you're going to consist of walking around at each section of the roof, looking for those defects. And what this does, while you're walking around each individual section, you're going to be, of course, peripherally looking at the gutter system and the roof system. Now, for the roof, you want to make sure that you get a very good view. So again, from here, you're going to be looking from left to right and trying to break it up. As you can see, we got a roof vent and a chimney. And we're going to be coming back to those sections. And specifically, anytime you have any sections that are coming out of the roof, you're going to be looking for lifting of shingles or how could water infiltration. Now looking over at this particular section, again, we know we have a fairly new roof. This is a cross gable. And as we can proceed, that we have a gable, we have a ridge vent, and actually a soffit system. So that is the particular ventilation for this roof system. Now looking at the gutter system, this is a fairly new gutter system that was installed approximately 6 months ago. It's a seamless gutter system. And what you can see is we want to make sure that the extension is, of course, about 3 feet or more away from the house, because we don't want the pooling of water against the foundation. But prior to having a gutter system, you can see the effects of having a lack of a gutter. You can see a rain line, you can see how it splashed up against the foundation, and including possible deterioration along the concrete apron against the foundation. Again, you're going to walk around the house 3 separate times. And the reason why we're doing that is so you don't become negligent, because when you're still looking at the gutter system, you still see the roof system, which possibly maybe you've missed something and you catch it. Here, you can see specifically that we have deterioration against the foundation because it was a lack of a gutter system. And we're going to say to ourselves, when we get to the basement, we have to directly pay attention to those locations to see if there is water infiltration, which could lead to hydrostatic pressure, which then would lead to efflorescence against the foundation. And as we continue to walk and inspect, you can see this garage. This garage is on a slab. The foundation is part of the slab. And then you have a wood structure with vinyl siding. So you can only imagine the possibility of when that gutter was missing, what type of pooling of water and possible impact to the sill and the actual structure on the inside. So when you perform the garage inspection, you're going to have to pay attention to those areas. Here we have a continued gutter system that's coming around and then all the way in the back. And the most important thing for a gutter system is, one, you want to make sure that it's level, that it's draining toward the downspout. You want to make sure that, in particular, if there are pieces of a system that's built together, that there's no breaks and leaks. Now, at this location, we can actually inspect the chimney. And what we're looking for specifically for a chimney is a multiple items. One, is there any repointing, any missing of bricks that we have to repair? What is the type of flashing against that chimney? Could there be possible leaks along the inside of the attic system? We want to make sure that there's a spark arrestor and a rain cap on top of that. Let's take a look at our inspection worksheet, shall we? So, what we have here is our roof and ventilation inspection worksheet. As you can see, we're going to go through each element, being the roof section, down to the gutter section, looking at the chimney, and then looking at the overall ventilation. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this up into particular sections as we inspect each element of the roof and ventilation section. So as you noticed, we inspected from the ground. So we would end up circling the ground. What type of roof were we looking at? Well, we had a gable and the porch is considered a cross gable. So what we actually have is we have a cross gable and we're going to circle those. What type of roof covering did we end up having? Well, there's multiple roof coverings. What we were actually looking at that day is these are the 3 tab, and then this specifically states that this is architectural shingle. So what we have is architectural shingle, so we're going to look at that. All right. Now, as we move on, one of the elements is roof approximate age. Depending on the state, most likely, as a home inspector, you're not going to have to determine the age of the roof. We're there to determine safety, operation, and conditioning. So typically, based on architectural shingles, we're going to say that this is a midlife. How do I know that? Well, I look at new roofs being from 0 to 5 years, midlife being from 5 to 20, and then older being 20, and so on and so forth. Now, let's look at observed defects. As we were walking around the house, we were looking at multiple defects that if we can find. We have curling, particulate release of the shingles, any lifting. Was there any missing shingles? Any moss? Anything that's loose? Are there separations? Are there cracks in the shingles? Any large debris? What about the sagging of the deck? In this particular home, there was no defects that we were observed. So here we would circle none. Now, if there was a defect that we would see, we would write down in this blank space here, we'd identify with 1, and then write a quick comment. So, for example, let's say if there was lifted shingles, we would state lifted shingles here. And when we would get back home and start writing up the report, we would follow each of these defects so we know what defects we have to write during the report writing process. And we'll get into that specifically when we start getting into the concepts of IDEA, where we identify the defect, we describe it, we explain it, and then we state the action we're going to be performing. Now, the roof penetrations, we know that there was a chimney and also a vent pipe. Now, we're just checking these locations, but again, we're looking for safety, operation, and condition. What was the type of flashing when we were there? What was the type of chimney and how it was coming through? It's making sure that when we're going through our checklist that we don't become negligent in the inspection process. So, as we went through, we know we had a vent pipe and we had a chimney. So we're going to stop right here.
As a home inspector, you will have to visually inspect the roof of the house, including, but not limited to, attachments and/or protrusions. A roof is not defective if it is not leaking. It may be unsightly, it may need repair, or may be beyond the end of its suggested life. But if it is not leaking, the roof system is performing as designed. According to the standards of practice for home inspectors, we do not recommend any particular written remedy and/or design solution, or give architectural or engineering advice. Remember, recommending replacement of any sort is considered a remedy. It is up to a qualified contractor to recommend a remedy or advice about how the defect should be repaired. Even if the home inspector is a qualified roofing contractor, he or she should not give written recommendations about how to repair or replace a roof or any other defect. A home inspector must take off the contractor's hat when performing the role of home inspector. It is a breach of ethics, a conflict of interest, and illegal to perform work on a house you have inspected. You do not want to open yourself up to any liability regarding even a recommendation about what repair or solution is needed. If a roof is old or beyond the end of its suggested life, then this is exactly what should be reported. If a roof is beyond the end of its suggested life and is leaking, this should be reported as a defect, and a qualified contractor should be contacted to evaluate and repair as necessary. If you judge the repairs may be in excess of $1,500, depending on the contract, then this will be classified as a major defect. However, the call to replace the roof is up to the contractor. When performing a home inspection, the home inspector will visually observe all components of the roof and describe the method of construction and roofing materials. The home inspector will, in writing, report any issues or defects found during the inspection and be available to discuss these concerns with the client in a manner to which the client understands. The next section is the New York State Standards of Practice. Following the SOPs will allow the home inspector to perform a proper inspection. Standards of Practice. Roof systems. Home inspectors shall observe and report on readily accessible roofing materials and condition, roof drainage systems, flashing, skylights, chimneys, and roof penetrations. The home inspector shall report on the methods used to observe the roof and other components set forth in this section. All home inspection reports shall describe the observed condition and type of roofing materials, and shall describe the methods used to observe the roofing. Home inspectors are not required to observe and report on antennas, lightning arresters, or similar attachments, any flue or chimney interior that is not readily accessible, or other installed accessories. Home inspectors are not required to operate power roof ventilators. Home inspectors are not required to determine the remaining life expectancy of roof coverings, manufacturer's defects, installation methods, or recalls, or to determine the number of shingle layers present. Home inspectors are not required to walk on or access a roof where to do so could result in damage to the roof or roofing material or endanger the health and safety of the home inspector. There are two components of a roof, the covering and the deck. The inspector must also report on the style of the roof. The purpose of the covering is to keep the elements of weather off the deck. Typically, A roof deck is constructed from plank board or plywood sheathing. The following table below is a list of roof coverings that may be encountered. Asphalt shingles. A thin mat reinforced typically with a fiberglass or a glass fiber mat that is coated with asphalt, which contains mineral fillers and makes the fiberglass shingle waterproof. Wood shakes. Basic wooden shingles that is made from split logs. The most common length is 24 inches, which contains mineral fillers and makes the fiberglass shingle waterproof. Wood shingles are made from cut wood rather than split wood. Slate roof. Smooth stone that is derived from shale-type sedimentary rock. The shingles are slivers of rock. Clay roof tiles are known for their rich red or terracotta coloring. They are manufactured in glazed or unglazed finish with colors which are always in some shade of red, orange, or earth tones. Metal roof. A roofing system that is made from metal pieces or tiles, typically made of galvanized steel. Rolled rubber. Ethylene propylene diene monomer is a synthetic rubber most commonly used in single-ply roofing because it is readily available and relatively simple to apply. The following illustration provides a few common examples of roof styles. Throughout your home inspection business, you will come across many types of roof styles that may require further research. A few examples of roof styles: gable roof, cross gable roof, mansard roof, hip roof, pyramid hip roof, cross hipped roof, salt box roof, and gambrel roof flat. Examples of attic supporting structures: truss system, triangular roof construction that spans from exterior wall to another exterior wall. There are several types. Rafters. A rafter is one of a series of sloped structural members, beams, that extend from the ridge or hip to the wall plate, downslope perimeter, or eave, and that are designed to support the roof deck and its associated loads. A gutter is a trough that is beside the edge of the roof, carrying rainwater away from the foundation of the house. And downspouts are vertical pipe that are connected to the gutter, guiding the rainwater. Fascia is the horizontal region underneath the edge of the roof, and skylights are overhead windows mounted in the roof region, allowing light into the house. There are several types of skylights. Vent pipes allow gas from the waste system to exhaust to the outside. Drain pipes, found on flat roofs, the drain pipe redirects the rainwater from the roof to the drainage system. The spark arrestor or rain cap prevents embers rising up and landing on your roof, and shields rainwater entering the chimney. Soffit vents are for air passage underneath the fascia boards that allow air circulation through the attic. Gable vents are vents installed on the front face of the gable, allowing air circulation through the attic. And roof vents allow air to pass through the attic region to the outside. A ridge vent is a vent that is installed at the peak of the roof, which allows warm, humid air to escape the attic. Valley flashing is a thin, continuous metal sheet that is installed to intersecting roofs. Step flashing is individual pieces of flashing installed to prevent water penetration at any roof penetration. As a new home inspector, you will need to establish your own standard for a roof inspection. Some home inspectors walk on roofs when they deem it safe to themselves and the roof covering to do so. Many home inspectors never walk on roofs. Our New York Standards of Practice says that we do not have to walk on roofs, but does not prohibit us either. The advantages of walking on a roof are self-evident. You will have a closer look at the condition of the covering, chimney, gutters, and penetrations. The disadvantages are also self-evident. Walking on a roof is hazardous to you personally, and you may damage the roof covering. It creates a situation at every inspection that you have to decide. Should I walk or shouldn't I walk? There are several variables involved in this decision. The variables include age of roof, style of roof, height of roof, and weather conditions. One factor remains: even if you walk on the roof, you still don't know if it is leaking or not. If you decide not to walk on a roof, a ladder can sometimes be used to get a closer look with reasonable safety. But even this is not mandated by the standards of practice. When inspecting a roof from the ground, a pair of binoculars is very helpful. Be sure to view the roof from all sides before filling out your worksheet. Determine the condition of the roof covering. Try to determine the approximate age of the covering. With some coverings, this is impossible. Gather all the available data you can and make your best judgment. One important thing to remember is to never recommend replacement of a covering. Replacement is a solution or remedy. The home inspector should recommend a qualified contractor to repair as necessary. Leave the solution to the qualified roof contractor.
Okay, this chapter is about the roof. And what you've already learned and we talked about are the standards of practice in terms of inspecting a roof. The first thing the standards of practice wants you to do is to go out and identify the type of roof and try and approximate its age. And it doesn't really matter when it comes down to the practicality of inspecting what kind of roof covering it is, whether it's slate, architectural shingle, metal roof, it just doesn't matter. The key to inspecting roofs is the simple question, is it leaking? Attorneys will call you and ask you, is that roof functioning? If not, it just needs to be repaired. If it's leaking, then you can say to fix it. But if it's not leaking, there's nothing you can really say about it. You need to understand that the best way to inspect a roof is from the attic. And hopefully you pick that up through the chapter. But if there's one thing that you need to learn, it's all about the leak when it comes to a roof. Get into that attic, if there is an attic, and look as thoroughly as you can in the attic. If it's not leaking, then that roof is operating as designed. It may be old, it may be deteriorated, but it's still operating, and there's nothing we can do as home inspectors other than informing your client, well, it's at the end of its useful life, it may need replacing at any time. The one thing about roofs that's important for you to understand is I don't teach in our school that you have to walk on roofs. I've never seen an inspector yet that walked on a roof and could tell whether it was leaking. It may look bad, and the flashing around chimneys may look bad or be ugly, but that doesn't mean it's leaking. So, and there's so many liabilities to getting on the roof. You're going to ruin the warranty on the roof, you're going to fall off the roof, there's a whole list of things that can go wrong. And the most important thing is, I think, a subtle thing. If you walk on some roofs and don't walk on other roofs, you in your mind think that the roof you didn't walk on didn't get as good an inspection. But if you never walk on roofs and you're thorough in the attic, then you're giving the same due diligence on every roof. That's an important psychological reason not to get on a roof.
So that's it for the exterior roof inspection. Let's go on to the quiz.